Hello, today we're going to talk about the process of cell respiration. This is such an important process because it's the one that powers the cell. And if you remember the mighty mitochondria, that is what we're going to get the energy from. So cell respiration occurs in the mitochondria, and it occurs in plants, animals, produce, fungus, things that have the mitochondria. Okay, we have an aerobic breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide and water. And just a little fun fact, um, for each molecule of glucose, there's 30 molecules of ATP that can be produced, which is 40% of the energy of glucose, where a car just converts 25% of the energy that's found in gasoline. So it's a very, very efficient process. All right, and another fun fact, a working muscle cell spends and must generate 10 million molecules of ATP per second, which is tremendous. Okay, so just to give you a little overview, there are two types of muscle fibers. We have slow muscle fibers and we have fast muscle fibers. Okay, slow muscle fibers can sustain repeated contractions, but they don't have a lot of that quick power for the body. So it's better for endurance exercises. And that is what the breakdown of glucose aerobically. Where the fast muscle fibers contract more quickly, they do fatigue more easily, but it's better at short bursts of intense energy, and it is breaking down glucose anaerobically. Okay, and just to kind of refresh your minds from chemistry, we have redox reactions, okay, where oxidation is the loss of electrons and reduction is the addition of electrons. So the redox reaction is an oxidation reduction reaction. So cell respiration takes place in the mitochondria. If you remember, the mitochondria has a double membrane. It has folds. The more folds you have, the more mitochondria, the more energy your body needs. Okay, in particular, we have the matrix, which is in here, and we have the cristae, which are the folds. Okay, and if you remember that mitochondria does have small amounts of DNA and RNA. Okay, so molecular oxygen wasn't around when the Earth formed. Okay, it gradually appeared about 3 billion years ago, and cyanobacteria started to do that. So the bacteria had a choice. They could die or they could adapt for the oxygen. And they did that. They adapted, and there were some bacteria that still are anaerobic that do not need the oxygen. So aerobic means with oxygen. Think of aerobics, a lot of breathing. So aerobes are those that use oxygen. Anaerobic is no oxygen. Okay, so an anaerobe cannot use oxygen and they are poisoned by it. Okay, so let's now learn about the process of cell respiration. It occurs in the mitochondria and it is a breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide and water. So this equation is very important for you to memorize. Okay, it is the reverse of photosynthesis. So we have carbohydrate, glucose plus oxygen is going to yield carbon dioxide and water and lots of energy. Okay, if you remember, photosynthesis had carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight is going to yield oxygen and carbon dioxide. So there are a nice connection between the two. Now, there are two phases of cell respiration. There's glycolysis, which is anaerobic, and then we have the aerobic phase. The aerobic phase is further broken down into the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle and the ETC or electron transport chain. And this is just a little overview of cell respiration. So glycolysis is anaerobic, and it starts when glucose enters the cell. So glucose. And if you know what lysis means, it means the breakdown of glucose. So glucose is going to enter the cell. It's going to get activated. So it's going to have two phosphates that are going to join on to the glucose, kind of to act as a signal. That will split into 2 3-carbon molecules, which are called PGAL. Okay? And they're also going to have enzymes that are going to remove hydrogens and electrons, and they're going to add them to another electron carrier called NAD. And that's going to form NADH. So by the end of this, the glucose that was broken down is going to create 2 molecules of pyruvic acid and produces ATP. So glucose enters in, it gets activated by the phosphate. Okay, electrons and hydrogens get removed. We form NADH and we have pyruvic acid. Again, this is all anaerobic. And that's the kind of the general gist of what happens. Okay, so now oxygen is needed. Okay, so oxygen and the pyruvic acid are going to enter into the mitochondria. All right, the pyruvic acid is going to break down into one molecule of carbon dioxide and acetic acid, which is a 2-carbon molecule. Okay, that acetic acid is going to join with a coenzyme A and form acetyl-CoA. And it's going to enter into the citric acid cycle and then the electron transport chain. So, what's the citric acid cycle? The citric acid cycle is also called the Krebs cycle because Hans Krebs figured it out. So, the acetyl-CoA, okay, again with the coenzyme A plus the acetic acid, is going to join up with a 4-carbon molecule, which is called oxaloacetate. Okay, that coenzyme A is going to be released, and the 2-carbon plus the 4-carbon is going to form citric acid, which is a 6-carbon molecule. Hence why it's called the citric acid cycle, because that's what's formed first. Now, citric acid is a 6-carbon molecule. It's going to release a carbon, okay? It is going to then form a 5-carbon molecule, and then the oxygen, that, because again, this is aerobic, is going to join with that carbon and be released into the air as CO2. Okay, so we have 6-carbon molecule. We lose a carbon to make carbon dioxide. We have a 5-carbon molecule. We're going to lose another carbon to make carbon dioxide for the 4-carbon molecule. And then there's going to be some rearrangements that are going to occur to remake that original 4-carbon molecule, which is oxaloacetate. Well, we also have electrons and hydrogens are going to be taken off, and we're going to be adding them to FAD and NAD. So we're going to be forming FADH and NADH. And again, this is also going to produce ATP. So the main gist of the citric acid cycle is to generate carbon dioxide. So now we're going to go on to electron transport chain. We had electrons that were on NADH and FADH. Those electrons are going to go down a series of reactions, all producing energy, mega amounts of energy. And the hydrogens from NADH and FADH are going to join with oxygen. Again, it's aerobic, so we're going to make water. All right, so we have then done the process of cell respiration. We broke down glucose into pyruvic acid and glycolysis. That pyruvic acid turned into acetic acid and joined up with a 4-carbon molecule, and then oxygen was added in, and we released carbon dioxide in the citric acid cycle. And then the electron transport chain was developing the huge amounts of ATP, and you can see there's 34 ATP that were generated in the electron transport chain. So it's huge energy. Now, let's just say after glycolysis, there's no oxygen. Well, it can't go through that and make that mega amount of energy. So the body or whatever organism goes through fermentation. So fermentation occurs if there's no oxygen after glycolysis. And it could be either lactic acid fermentation, which we do in our body, or alcoholic fermentation, which is bacteria and yeast will do. So steps: glycolysis. Glucose enters the cell. Glucose splits into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. We release energy. Well, we also need to take out a carbon, okay? Because ethanol and lactic acid are 2-carbon molecules. So we are going to take the 3-carbon molecule and we'll move a carbon dioxide, and that's either going to form ethanol or lactic acid. So when we're working out hard and we're not breathing enough for our body's going to produce lactic acid, and that's that burn you feel. Okay, and alcoholic fermentation is a process of making alcohol. If you have any questions, because I know this is very difficult, we will talk about it in class. We'll do tons of review to help you out with this. But please ask me your questions tomorrow. Thanks.